Thank you for joining us today. We're really excited to have you all participating in today's webinar. As we wrap up the first quarter of the 21st century, we find ourselves in a world facing considerable challenges in our energy sector and growing ESG obligations. Alongside the clean energy transition, communities and regulators bring consistent pressure to meet governance and disclosure requirements. And we, as an industry, recognize the need to promote good water stewardship throughout this transition. Effectively managing tailings remediates ESG risks and unlocks production efficiency through resource management and recovery. Thank you for choosing to spend this hour with us today. My name is Joel. I'm a Tailings Solutions Manager with Hatch's Digital Practice. My role in the organization over the last decade has been to connect both capital projects in mining and infrastructure and downstream operations with the digital tools needed to improve key outcomes. One of the key areas of focus of that delivery is in connecting the adopters of digital change with subject matter experts needed to support them and to create a positive change management experience. I'm excited today to be joined by Daniel Andres Molina, Senior Tailings Engineer, who will join us remotely, and Ian McKechnie, a professional mining engineer previously working for BHP and Anglo American, and now product manager of the platform we're going to discuss today, not to be confused with the famous rugby player. We're going to discuss the role of Hatch's integrated, holistic management approach and the platform our tailings practice has developed alongside key pilot clients and its role in digitalization. It's more than just having a sensor reporting into Excel, but about closing a management loop that integrates feedback from all parts of the operation, from the plant through transport and then into recovery of both the water and residual materials and deposition. This really is about going beyond simply measuring and alerting, but into understanding how a digital tailings management platform integrates into site activities like water management, activity management, and compliance. Our hope today is that everyone can walk away with a sense of the possibilities of next generation digitalization applied to tailings management. We want to establish new ways to create opportunities for both process and efficiency improvement. And most importantly, as an industry, by getting the figurative keys to the right people, those capable folks on the ground, we can protect against unwanted events and preserve reputation and social license to operate. Before we get into the details of our presentation today, it's important for us to reflect on a key element of our industry, and that's safety. Hatch as an organization takes extreme pride in our safety record and our commitments to our manifesto, of which safety is central. That safety extends beyond just our site workers, but into the communities around us. It's the passion to create positive change and to innovate all that we do, which guides our work as engineers in the industry. Unfortunately, as recently as February 13th this year, the Çople mine in Turkey experienced a failure in its heap leaching facility. Workers reported cracks forming only that morning, and the resulting landslide claimed the lives of 9 workers at the site. While several factors have been identified in the incident, a key finding was that the signaling system to manage ground vibrations was broken. This, combined with poor management of the heap size, have been noted as key factors in the collapse. As such, we as engineers in the industry take it upon ourselves to develop technology that ensures that the legacy of today's decisions creates a foundation for a safer, a more positive, and prosperous tomorrow. With that in our minds, I'd like to speak briefly on today's agenda to set the table for everyone before handing over to my colleagues. First, we're going to ask Daniel to provide some context for our conversation and discuss some of Hatch's experience in tailings management. Following that, we'll have an interactive session where we invite you to provide feedback on the challenges you experience in the industry day to day in your own organizations. We've prepared some Mentimeter prompts to help this process. You shouldn't need to download an app for this experience. You can interact directly with the presentation and provide your answers there. We'll review Hatch's approach to addressing these challenges, and Ian will take you through a practical example of how we can manage them more effectively in an integrated tool. Later on, Ian will share with you our view of the future, and we'll be taking questions in the last 20 or so minutes. In order to open those questions, and if you'd like to add some as we go, The QA panel will be used inside of Teams. You can click that button, the panel will open, you can enter your questions. We'll answer those towards the end of the presentation. So with that, I'd like to hand off to Daniel to take us through a quick background of Hatch's practical experience in the area.
Thanks, Joel, and good afternoon, everyone. Good morning. For those that you know Hatch, you might wonder why a consulting firm like us has embarked on the development of a digital tool for tailings. Well, the answer is short, but it's because we like to solving problems, and we believe that there is quite a lot of improvement when it comes to tailings management. Obviously, to solve a problem, we need to understand the background, and for this, Hatch has been present in the industry for a long time. As we can see in this slide, we're going to show we have been in the industry for more than 50 years, and our approach to tailings has always been holistic. In other words, we manage tailings from the full life cycle. That means from the moment that they are created to the moment that they are deposited, to support what we call the holistic view. For that, we have developed strong knowledge in dewatering technologies, from thickening, cycloning, and filtration. We support projects from early field campaigns to detailed design and even construction. We have a strong focus in water management. Whatever you hear, tailings management is water management. And of course, we have a lot of experience with the application of our governance, from the development and implementation of operation manuals, and also to the development and implementation auditing as well of the new not so new anymore, but GISTM standards. In addition, our tailings practice has been working on the circular economy that ICMM is calling now for implementation, and we have developed a patent that transformed some of the tailings into construction materials. So with this introduction, we'd like to go into the Mentimeter to understand a little bit your feedback on your challenges and what you're looking for in a solution for tailings. And now the Mentimeter session, if you can please, those are in the computer, you should have an interactive mode in the Teams session. So you can click in the Teams session, the phone that you see, and you'll be able to respond and navigate on the screen. Basically, you might have to accept some cookies that will be required, please. If those are some of you that don't be on the phone, please scan this QR code. Or if that doesn't work, just go into the mentimeter.com and use the code there. I believe the code is in the Q&A session, Q&A button. If you open that, you will see the code as well. Please, as you connect, if you can give me thumbs up that everything is working well, I will appreciate. So make sure that we are all connected. I'll wait to see those thumbs coming up. Now you should be able to interact with the screen. Okay. I'll wait for a few more thumbs coming up. Okay, I can see those coming now. Thank you so much. So we go to the first question. It's an icebreaker, so don't panic. We're not going to get any know-how from you on this one. How does a miner make coffee? Please raise your responses. All right, an easy one. Okay. Well, the answer is that they use tailings water. It's already filtered, right? Okay, let's get serious. Right. Let's get serious here, as I said. The first question really is, what do you consider to be your biggest roadblocks in seeking digital solutions for tailings management, while keeping ESG goals a priority? Basically, when you want to implement a digital solution, digital software for tailings, what do you see that's the problem there? If you can please write the three words in the field that you have, that will allow us to understand what are basically the common challenges that we face in here, the roadblocks. see status quo. Cost is a good one. Yeah. Resources. Yeah, absolutely. We can implement new systems, but we might need more resources. But obviously, depending on what type of systems, right? Ideally, or the goal is that to reduce resources needs, right, with implementation of new systems. Integration with existing systems, absolutely. We don't want to work in silos. We want to develop something that it can connect to all the systems that are already in place and make sure that we are collecting all the information from those systems. The thing is, like, we want to develop a solution that is what we call agnostic. Transparency, yep. Christine. Transparency of the data is a good one, because what data you're getting, make sure that that data is information. That's the goal here. You get a lot of data, but how does transform data into information? A few more, 9 responses so far. Okay, we're going to move on to the next one. All right. So in here, what we want to hear from you, well, what of these benefits you see that will bring proactiveness to your operation? Basically, can you rank all these options we have marked here so we understand what do you think is a priority for you while implementing a solution for tailings? You basically click on the one this is most priority, and then you go in sequence for the one most priority to the less priority. Keep clicking, and it will come up sort of a bar chart in the screen. There might be some issues with the connection. Here they are. They come in. Okay. Real-time monitoring. Yep. Obviously, data-driven decisions. Yep. Operational excellence. Governance is probably, for this case, the last one. Okay. Still data-driven decisions. It's at the top. And real-time monitoring. Real governance is coming up now. Few more answers there. Group designs. So in here, obviously, what we want to achieve is make sure that our data is relevant. Our data transforms into information, as I said. So it makes sense that data-driven decisions is on the top, right? That's going to make sure that everything fits together. All the data that we collect from the field, it needs to go to also to the governance. Okay, make sure that all the information is captured there. Real-time monitoring, obviously, it's give us a better reaction time if something's happening. So we're looking for that as well. And governance, we know what's happening these days. If we don't have the right governance in place, either with GSTM or other standards, we might not get investors to invest in our companies. Okay, let's go to the next one. In this one, basically what we're saying here, it's how robust is your tailings monitoring? If you already have tailings monitoring in place, we want to understand either if you have your monitoring focus on what they call the storage facility, if you actually monitoring the storage facility and the transport of tailings, if you're going beyond that and you monitoring storage facilities plus the transport plus your dewatering facilities, if you have any, and the one that it will be the best, right, is if you're doing storage facilities, transport, dewatering facilities, and also your operations management. So let's see what we see here. tailings storage. There's one boat here that focus on the storage facilities, transport, and dewatering processes and management. Yep. In this case, what we see majority of the times is that our clients, they're monitoring the tailings storage facility, in some cases the transport, but we don't see that integrated view of tailings from what it's coming from the point that they're created, or it's outside of the mill, throughout the life cycle of tailings. And this is what we want to have here, right? Wait a bit more for a few votes. Okay, here we see that storage facilities and transport is the most common. Understand? This is the case. This is the case for our clients as well. All right, this was the last question, right? What we're gonna do now? Oh, most questions coming in. Well, all that confirms what we're saying, storage facilities and transport as the most common. So from what we see from your responses and the work that we've done working with our clients is that we have common challenges in the industry, right? And that's what we see here from your responses. Now we're going to change the Mentimeter session. Thanks for that. We're going to go back to the presentations. And we have listed here some of the common challenges we experience, and I'm sure that you also have experience. The first one is disconnect processes. What we see in many tailings facilities with our clients is that the processes that are powerful for one part of the process, one part of the operations, but don't serve or don't share the information to other parts of the operations. In that, we need to understand that we need to have a tool that shares the processes around, and the information generated in one part, for example, the actual monitoring of the dewatering facility, is actually shared information throughout the tailings governance that is in place, meaning the tailings engineers and operators. And those need to have the information mainly because the dewatering facility, how it performs, and the plant, how it performs itself, can affect the properties of tailings and the downstream deposition of tailings. So for us, it's important that there is this view of what's happening upstream to make sure your transport and your deposition is properly managed. Lack of planning. Many of our operators are working on a reactive mode. The lack of personnel, the lack of expertise, there is no time to plan. Not to say planning for the future, the possibility to understand the future depositions to then recover those tailings and repurpose the tailings, that's too hard in many instances. We want to solve this. There is also lack of governance. In many places, OMS manuals, they're not to be seen, or in some places, they just don't exist. The GSTM is also coming with strong demands, so a lot of clients are falling behind with the risk of not having your license to operate. The poor operations management with no routine schedule, no standardization of inspections, that's created an issue. Operators, field inspections are not done in a proper manner for today's world with digital technologies. They're done in a booklet, paper, so on. The personnel isn't trained. There is lack of understanding of the deficiencies in our tailings facilities, which leads to a misunderstanding on the observations, which can lead to a misunderstanding of the actual observation and not having a real feedback of what's happening on site. All that is not supported even by a centralized tool that we can combine all the information. There is resistance to change. People is busy. We don't have time to spend with new tools. There is fear to job disruption. There is no trust on the data sometimes because it's fragmented sometimes. There is no trust in the data security. Many clients want to hold the information in their systems. There is some legacy processes that it's difficult to get out. So for that, we need to develop something that addresses all these issues. There is also the fact that there's variety of site-specific needs. We understand that. We understand that there is different climates, different locations, topographies, and there's also different cultures, right? We need to make sure whatever we develop needs to fit within the culture of the place. That means from safety cultures, with approach to operations, to make sure that we close these gaps. With all this, we believe that it's time to change through digitalization. But many of you might wonder, what is really digitalization? What is really digital transformation? Digital transformation, in a nutshell, is replacing your analog systems with digital technologies to enhance monitoring, data generation, communication, and analytics to improve the performance of your TSF and your TSF through the life cycle of Tailings. It is not really a question on when are we going to do that, it's how you're going to do it. We have to do this now. It's proven that new technologies can support operations and improve operations. How did we do it? Well, how was our approach to this development? We started to investigate the challenges, which ones you have presented, and we started to talk to our clients. So we focused this from 4 pillars. The first one is technology. We wanted to create a centralized tool connecting the dots and tracking the disconnect processes. We wanted to understand the data, make sure that we have the data coming into the systems and it's available to the right people. And we want to have a simplistic tool, make sure that it's manageable by operations. From a technical point of view, we noticed that lots of data without context. So for us, we wanted to make sure that if data is fragmented, we want to understand why. If there is data that is not coming in, we want to understand why. Data supports decision, as we saw before from your answers. For us, it's important that that data is transformed into information, as I said. We want to focus on understanding the technicalities as well on the dewatering facilities and transport and storage to support the holistic view. From the organizational point of view, we noticed that the systems that are in place for managing tailings, your monitoring systems for piezometers, inclinometers, etc., they're only visible by operations in the ground. Sometimes, obviously, get sent information to EORs, RTFEs, but it doesn't get scale up to the executive accountables, right? So for us, it's important that we define a tool that allows everyone at the organization to check how the tailing facility is performing. And what one of our clients was saying, I want to go to bed and not worry about this. That's the goal. Obviously, ESG performance. We want to make sure that we get that license to operate. We have the GISTM protocols in place. We need to keep up with the demands of the GISTM. We have experience throughout the last few years auditing GISTM standards with some of our clients and even implementing. From that experience, we have developed a system that allows us to control your implementation and also do auditing on GISTM. We've been able to integrate all the GISTM standards into a tool to better manage your GISTM. Likewise, we've done with the operational manuals and your emergency response plans. With that, now setting the scene of the common challenges and the challenges we're facing and how we approach the development of the tailings tool, I want to pass the word back to Joel that will continue with the presentation.
Thank you, Daniel. And thank you to all of you in the audience for providing your feedback. There was a number of comments around overcoming the status quo and resource management, as well as integrating with other systems. Before we move into the rest of the presentation, we should touch on that a little bit. One of our key objectives with the software is to meet you where you are, understanding that change is difficult. And in order to overcome that, we want to be able to bring software to people that fits in with their daily lives today, that meets where our sensors are today, and allows us to minimize the burden of change, but also allows us to integrate with the existing infrastructure. And so, responding to the industry, Hatch has developed a holistic tailings management system for mining companies worldwide. So visible in this slide are a number of screenshots from the software, and we'll review those features in a few moments. Hatch's integrated tailings management software provides teams with integrated, intelligent, and timely insights and actions driven by comprehensive data and deep insights into daily operations. I've mentioned both holistic and integrated management throughout the presentation, and I'd like to expand on that and the value just a little bit. When we say holistic and integrated management, we mean to take into consideration factors beyond just the tailings dam itself. A number of you reported that your monitoring covers more than just transport and the facility. So understanding what our operations, maintenance, and surveillance plans are, and how those impact the impoundment, ensuring that our responses to conditions are executed, documented, and those results saved, improves decision-making and question answering downstream. This saves considerable effort. Operators want to make decisions based on deep insights and awareness. We spoke of this, having data-driven decisions, of plant operating requirements and weather trends to reduce risk. And we recognize the link between GISTM, as well as other regulatory needs, and the status of assets in the field. Reporting data is a first step, but what moves the needle on decision quality is information, and information is data that is given context. So there's no need to change your existing instrumentation with this platform. It leverages modern sensor connections that can interface with any vendor's time series sensors and your existing infrastructure. The objective of the tool is to meet you where you are from a technology standpoint and connect those very busy people in the field with information that helps them do their jobs to the standard of good we know they approve of. They know what needs to be done. They need the information to make the best choices. So with this approach, we increase the safety and reliability of tailings facilities. We improve the operational effectiveness and efficiency of our teams. We enhance the speed and integrity of governance and compliance, and we help maintain social license to operate. Now, before handing over to Ian, who's going to take us through a demo of the product, I'd like to highlight some of the core functionality that we're going to discuss and how it relates to your needs. The features set built into the product focuses on tackling the challenges mentioned in a holistic way, meaning we aren't only looking at sensor output, but considering its implications in the overall water balance for the site through operational water management and improving performance and reducing external dependence for water. We track regular updates and compliance activities against the plan to ensure that we meet our GISTM regulatory objectives, reducing the effort needed to demonstrate our commitments in a reportable way. We leverage cutting-edge technologies to provide monitoring of 700 plus sensor types and vendors that meets you where you are with no capital investment required, and we draw input from any other structured data source, that being Pi or MineStar, as well as handling importing of data from periods where a sensor may have been disconnected due to communications issues. Status and condition information is displayed both in typical report formats you would see from your EOR or an ITRB, and is also presented in a geospatially relevant context. And this helps to prioritize responses, but it also ensures that staff have the correct context for the repair or activity required. Deposition information is tracked against plan and improves forecasting of dam raise requirements, as well as creating a foundation for future reclamation activities. Operational management closes that management loop on the site activities that ensures appropriate responses are executed to planned and unplanned conditions, and that those are tracked and reportable. While anomaly and change management functions track decisions and results of these activities to support later decisions and audit functions. And with that, I'd like to call on Ian to take us through a demonstration of what holistic management of tailings looks like. Ian will be joining me from the right.
Thanks, Joel. So along where we are. Good to see everybody virtually. Look, took us some notes on this tab in front of me regarding the discussion we had earlier, and look, there's not many surprises in the mining industry, right? So except for the person who wrote down a resource, look, we're not gonna be able to help you out with your resource or body, but your people on the ground, I think we've got some stuff to show you. We're just gonna bring up the demo presentation now, which we'll swap over to, and 3 caveats that I'll be talking about with you today. So first off, this is a video, so I recorded earlier on this week. Turns out webinars don't like software all that much, so this is going to give us a reliable demonstration for you and make sure we cover the material in the proper time. Also as well, all of this information you're about to see is not client data. So client data belongs to clients. We're not ready to share that for your data either, but this is generated to be representative of what you'd see in the live system. Thanks for bringing that up. Finally, and probably most importantly, I have a reputation for speaking very quickly on topics I'm interested in. I'm very interested in tailings, so I'm going to try my very best to speak slowly and clearly for you all. If I don't manage that, my apologies in advance. I hope you'll bear with it. Okay, what we have up here on the screen is this is a map view of a typical mining facility. You can see there's a bunch of dots and things there. What we're trying to do, based on the previous conversation, is pull this information together. Commonly, what we're seeing with some clients is that you have inclinometers on one tool, you might have a specialized seismic array or shape array, you've got water flows coming from another system, you've got some sensors off in the plant. There's a lot of different things, and if you're in the chair on the day, you need to log in to 5 or 6 different aspects to figure out what's going on, or have someone else in your team pull information together for you. What our pitch is through an integrated system is that you don't need to do that. You can connect systems together with the same view, such that your morning in, as you sit down, you take a look at how things are going, and you see, look, things are looking green, I can go on with my day. We all know that the role of technical professionals and our operators in the field is not to be at their desks, is to be out there on the ground, making sure things are running safely and correctly, and picking up all the problems that computers aren't good at catching. Systems like this mean that people can come in and get their job done from the start. As systems get more complicated, we built some basic filtering elements to allow you to manage larger systems. So there's really no limit to what you can play into these things. Joel mentioned correctly that we can connect to hundreds of different sensor types. And what we're finding with some of our early implementations is there's really no limit to how far people want to go. What starts out with inclinometers and piezometers quickly moves into, hey, can I get turbidity sensors in there? Hey, I've got some densimeters in the plant I want to keep an eye on. You begin pulling these things in, and almost always the answer is, of course we can. We've designed for that. The best thing about working in tailings is that tailings is a true vertical slice of the entire mining operation. There's almost nothing out of the reach of things that might interest someone involved in tailings, because we know that ours is a holistic practice that requires a broad understanding to be effective at managing the risk properly. So we do know that there's a yellow sensor on there, so we can click on that, and we can quickly see what's happening inside of it. Turns out, yep, there's a warning state. So we can dig in and we can see some detail. I'm going to show you a few pieces on this screen. The goal here is that, and I saw data transparency earlier on, the goal here is to show everything a sensor has to offer you. So if you're paying for a sensor to provide you information, it's not the software's job to hide that or pre-steer it. You might prioritize data like we are with this hydrostatic water level, but the goal is that you can dig down and you can see any information you want to see that sensor supporting inside your network. Scrolling down, we see evidence of that through a data table. The goal here with manual data, or with data tables in general, is that sometimes you want to see the data just through a few points or do some quick analysis. Other times you want to export it, work in Excel, give it off to engineer, and go do a side project for the rest of the week. We let you do that. The data both exits the system and enters the system freely so that people are able to work with it in the way that they want to. You'll also notice on the data table that there are components with manual data there, and I could probably spend 15 minutes on that topic alone. But I wanted to share with you is that part of the Hatch solution is that we understand the role manual data has to play in our operations. Many of us might wish that we have a fully, started the mine a year ago, and we have all modern systems that were already ready to go and pre-configured on fiber optic. For the rest of us, though, that don't have that situation, we might still have standby piezometers. We might still have loggers that go down from time to time and have to have readings recovered. We might still have operators go in the field, take readings that are not instrumented. This is going to be the case probably for our careers and maybe beyond. What we're planning to do is we're planning to enable that to ensure that both manual data and automated data play nice with each other. If data comes in manually, this helps fill in gaps in automated systems. And the goal here is that you shouldn't need to choose when you're picking a software system. And a truly integrated system can accommodate both those manual streams, those automated streams, and behave the same no matter where that data is coming from. What this means is that with your existing installations, I remember Joel mentioned meeting where you are, you can bring in tools that work with where you're at and give you more options for where you're going to go. My definite hope is that if with a proper integrated system, you might change your plans on how you instrument going forward. Many of us would have rushed to high automation, high detailed systems. It's a result of when GSTM first came in. As we're finding now, tailings facilities are around for a long time. That means that manual sensors and more manual activities we might have considered 2 years ago, as long as we can still get the data in and use it, maybe those are more cost effective. Maybe those are more reliable going forward. And our goal with the system is to give you that choice. Okay, I talked about moving down to the details and looking at sensor by sensor basis. I'm now going to pivot us over to dashboards. We've invested a fair amount of effort in ensuring that we have custom dashboarding capability. I have yet to meet an engineer or supervisor or manager that likes the data the way it is the first time it's shown to them. Everyone wants to see things their own way. We're catering that through dashboards. So people might have their own dashboards for their own personal use. You might have a weekly stand-up meeting that you run. You may have one that you screenshot and send off to people on the operation for their own purposes. There really is no end to how much you want to be able to show and the ways you're able to show it. Our goal is to get out of the way, give the tools to be able to do that. What we're seeing here is a typical display of various piezometers installed on the eastern slope of one of the facilities. And you can see this engineer has chosen to watch these three. You can see that it's got manual data in place, it's got thresholds that have been assigned, and you can quickly see at a bird's eye view of what's actually happening there. And you can add more and more if you want and get greater density of this information. On the bottom left, I want to highlight, although it is just a table, that table wasn't there 3 weeks ago. So we happened to have a request came in and we knew that there was some potential that people might want to see data differently. In this particular case, an operator said, hey, look, I love the graphs. My engineers love it. People on the ground just need something more simple. They want to see numbers on a table. It's how they've worked for the past 10 years, and they've got to be able to see it that way. And implicitly, I'm not willing to push them to change just yet, so could you give me a helping hand? Sure enough, 3 weeks later, that table appeared. So I guess I use it as an illustration of when you've got a flexible system that's set up for these sort of circumstances, it's pretty easy to go to the places that you need to be. I'll also call out for those of you who can squint a little bit in the bottom left, we're also capturing problem states as part of capturing manual data. Sometimes the data actually is, there is no data and here's the reason for it. In this case, in Northern Canadian mine, it was frozen pre-freshet. So if you have sensors that have gaps on a regular basis, sometimes you just want to capture, hey, that sensor went missing for 3 months, or that logger was down, or someone pulled up that cable. The data around the data itself is what you want to retain, because you know that now, in 3 years' time, you may not be able to explain why there was a 2-month gap in a sensor. And this gives you the opportunity to capture that and carry it forward. Moving forward, we're going to move over to how we actually add some of those metrics. I might speed through this a little more quickly. So if we add metrics, we're adding about a type of metric, one every month or two, roughly. Right now, we cater for a whole bunch that should look familiar to many of you. And the goal here is that we're able to allow people in the field to self-configure these things. Hatch's business is not here to make money off of support tickets. Our job is to give people the tools they need to ensure that they're able to self-configure these things and administer their own systems. I'll say it probably multiple times in this presentation. We are not building a black box. I think we've all seen our fair share of those. The goal here is to have everyone with the tools they need to understand how they want data to play in their own world and make sure it's meeting their expectations. An example of that is at the bottom. I'm really happy with this part. I've seen many counterexamples elsewhere. This is a plain English threshold system. So without any training and any detailed explanation, you know exactly what that threshold screen is going to do. The goal here is to combine both the formal control systems and benefits we get from having thresholds in place regarding warning and critical levels, and also give engineers a chance to go beyond that. We're already seeing some common applications where engineers have said, hey, look, I know what the limits are and I want them in place and they have to be that way, but I want to know about that stuff like a meter or two in advance. We allow for unlimited thresholds being assigned to various metrics to ensure that everyone who needs to know when they need to know it will get that information the preferred way. I could also spend 10 minutes on alarm fatigue, but it's a short demo, so I'll leave that for a later conversation. Moving on, we're going to give you a preview of what the deposition functionality looks like. So this is a fairly standard deposition plan where we set up a 30-day informational state, and it looks like we've been over depositing for the past couple of days. What the system lets us do is click it on see what the status is. We can look at which spigots were involved, see how long they're open for, and then click in for more detail. And this is continuing my hypothesis on being able to give you all the information in a subsystem should be available to you on demand. It shouldn't drown you in detail, but it should give you a chance to explore that and see what's happening. So on this sort of display, we can see a whole bunch of details around the spigots, which areas were open. In this case, we notice, oh yeah, that one's open for a couple of days longer than it should have been. I'll talk to the operators, we'll get that shut off, and we'll do a process correction to improve next time. Similar to deposition, we provide a built-for-purpose equipment system. Now I'll pause here and reinforce that this is not meant to replace an SAP installation or a customized solution for managing your tools. What we are doing is that we're trying to provide holistic functionality for people who might be missing this. So if you have equipment that you need to track that might not be tied into your main plant systems, this helps you out. So in this case, I've got a piezometer out of the side of the facility. I want to know, hey, the battery level is about to go low. I better get there before I start losing some data what's meant to be recording. I want to know when I installed it, when I meant to replace it. At the bottom there, you see a common bugbear for all of us. When it was first installed 7 years ago, where is the calibration record for that silly thing? Sometimes it's an email or a spreadsheet or a filing cabinet somewhere. By having a system that has places for those things to go, you create an incentive for it to be put there, and it means they'll be there when you need it. Speaking of putting things in the proper spot, this is a preview of our work item system. So most of this will be very familiar to many of you. We've all seen various varieties of these things. Most commonly, this is a 80 to 100 row register action sheet in Excel that's been on the site for the past 5 years. Everyone knows what it does. No one's particularly happy with it, and everyone wishes they had something better. So keeping with our idea of we're giving you some tools to move you forward, this does that. I can look at the list. I can see who's it's assigned to. I can create recurring invitations and activities. I can see, very importantly, what's overdue, what do I need to do, and move on with the rest of my job. The goal of doing this is not to make the world's best action management system. It's getting information to the proper spot. We want to make sure that all tailings activity is available and relevant to people who need to look into it. And work items is an important part of that. Depending on how busy your site is, there's a lot of qualitative information about what's being done to manage the facility that flows right on past and disappears the moment that work is completed. Putting things into a system gives you a fighting chance of not just coordinating that work better, but also making it available for recovery analysis down the line. Moving on to one of those topics, water management. This is a 1 hour demo in itself, so I'm going to do a very superficial view of this. My apologies to water management professionals in the audience, but hopefully to many of you, you look at this and you know what I'm showing you. This is a water network view that is pulling off of a GoldSim model. We're not here to replace GoldSim, but this is a fair representation of water network behaviors for people who are used to working in that environment. Just like you'd see elsewhere in the system, wherever you have levels and values coming through, you have thresholds, you have warnings, you have notifications, you have an awareness of, are things behaving the way that I'm expecting, or do I need to pay some attention here? For sites that have water management issues or a lower water, these views might save you a lot of money and a lot of concern down the line. Moving forward from water management, I can cover off on another important piece of storing information, which is our change log. For those of you who work more extensively with Hatch, you know that Hatch really gets capital projects. It's a really impressive history behind it. As a mining engineer, I'm definitely out of my league there. We've kind of copied some of the homework of some other products that we have in the portfolio to make sure that we can get you information about material changes to your facility. You can see here that there's a timeline with all the information that's happening. If you click into one, you can see what we would all be hoping for, which is when that event happened, what was it all about? Who was doing it? What did we complete? What was the status? Did we do an analysis afterwards? Are there any attachments or files to be aware of? And it collects all that information in the moment that's relevant and we're all aware of, we all agree that we understand completely, and it puts it away in the proper spot, such that in 3 months' time or a year, when you need to complete an audit or do a year-end review or just pull together information for a new engineering record, it's already there for you. You've already put the work in the first time to put the proper spot, and it's going to be leveraged and deliver value for you going forward. We'll zoom out from the change log now, and we'll head off to the hot topic for many of us, which is GSTM. I'm going to have to apologize up front for GSTM because we are actually actively building this component right now. So this is an area where the demo from last week is not keeping up with current development, with the major patch coming out in 3 weeks. But thankfully, it's still in the same area, so I can still speak to it. This is an example of bringing in an area that is very relevant to tailings, technical standards management, and putting it alongside your data and the activity your people are doing elsewhere, also related to tailings. One of the things we're doing is we're extending this historical trend out from looking backwards to looking forwards, i.e. answer that question that every accountable executive has, which is, don't tell me conformance, tell me when it's going to be done. And if it's not going to be done on time, what resources do you need to get there? To support with that, we put all the activity related to GSTM in one spot, so it's easily accessible to you as someone managing it or someone working inside of it. Let's face it, administering technical standards is not a job many of us would have wanted and would have expected to have, but it's also a job that we have, and we need some tools to help us out in managing it. So to do so, what we've done is we brought GSTM as a subcomponent in the system, which means that you can open up any of these topics requirements and get what you need to. So all the common features are there. You can assign it to somebody. The site can self-assess versus that requirement. We've added in a section more recently for assurance folks as well. So not saying that sites shouldn't be trusted, but sites also usually apply one particular lens when they're looking at compliance. And also you want to bring in some other people as well. So you might bring a corporate officer, you might bring in a external auditor and give them a section. You know, do we agree that we're actually at meets? And if we don't agree, what gaps do we feel we might have to progress? Scrolling further down, we can see that there's a whole bunch of stuff in these standards that goes way beyond the typical capacity of our spreadsheets to keep a handle on. We might want to carve up the standard to separate risk areas. We might want to select which criteria actually affect us. So just because the GSTM says criteria A, B, and C doesn't mean that's relevant for us, and doesn't mean we should spend effort kind of tracking and building up evidence for it. This puts you in the driver's seat to ensure that you're in control of what you're actually doing and what compliance actually looks like for you and your sites. Lastly, at the bottom, I wouldn't get away without showcasing that we have evidence systems. So every technical standard requires evidence to be uploaded. We have an option to either upload that information directly into our document management tool, or if you already have a document management system, and I sure hope you do, this allows you to link into that and reuse the existing information you already have. The system doesn't care which way is which. It'll maintain those links for you and persist that evidence. At the bottom, got some site notes as well to ensure that your assurance folks and your site folks can see what each other are writing, which is often quite important. There's also a preview there of the commenting functionality, which provides you with context regarding the overall standard and what the activities surrounding it, not just the outcomes. If I had a nickel for every time that you say, hey, what's your compliance? Like, oh, okay, we're compliant. Great. How confident are you that you actually are there? You start to get a little bit more weathered under the collar. Having access to that richer context means that you have not just the declaration, the performance states, but you have access to what actually went into making those things happen. And if you have a person change halfway through, you can catch them up and keep them going. Related to that, we have a fit-for-purpose document management system. You'll recognize this very similar to equipment, where if you need some tools that are in place to help you out with managing tailing-specific documents, because maybe your existing ones aren't suitable, this lets you do that. Take in any of the familiar file types, allow for all the familiar fields as well as saying, hey, who owns this file? When is it going to be reviewed? What type is it? Et cetera, et cetera. And we're playing with a lot of cool features regarding document interactions down the line. I'm running low on time, so I'm going to shortcut through most of this stuff. But to me, this is where the real heart of the system is. I mentioned before that we're not building black boxes. And the functionality you're seeing on the screen exposes the heart of the system that's often hidden for people who need it most. Lists of tags coming directly from your sensors, such that when you install a sensor on site, it's not a support call waiting for another technician to come in and solve your software problem. It's a call between a person on the ground and a person in the control room saying, hey, I know there's a tag there. Can you just give it to me? I want to set it up to date. I need to start using it. This accelerates the delivery of the value of those sensors into the integrated system. Because what use is an integrated system if it's only 80% integrated? This is a view of showing how you can actually configure it and see which units are involved. And the last piece I've got is around calculated tags. Calculated tags are what takes you beyond your direct readings and into your inferred and related readings. This is what really begins to extend the functionality to ensure that people on the ground can use their systems and go beyond it to measure things that are of interest or things that are relevant. And that's going to be very different for each of your sites. But the common need is you need some way to go past your direct readings. For example, this is a calibration element being used for a vibration wire piezometer. Usually this is hidden in the background somewhere. Here in our system, if it is in the system, you can see why it's there, and you can see how it's behaving. And if you do a recalibration, your engineer can go in and change those numbers themselves. And if asked by someone, say, hey, well, why is it this way or why is it off? I go, oh yeah, I need to go in and I need to fix that up. As an engineer myself, I never got to see this level of detail when I was doing these jobs in the field. And I'm really thrilled that we're able to design for that to ensure that these talented professionals get access to the information that they deserve. I'm down to my last 3 seconds, so I'm going to zoom back to the map. I hope that you have seen things that are of interest to you. I hope that some of the situations I've described are hopefully familiar to you, but I also hope that you share my enthusiasm that it doesn't need to be that way going forward. Technology, and in particular the systems that Hatch has developed, really will help us move past the challenges of today so that we start focusing on the challenges that are yet to come. We all have a common interest in the safe management of these facilities, and I really hope that you've seen that technology and software, particularly that from Hatch, give you a real helping hand in solving those tricky problems. Okay, I've got one more slide to go off on. So what I've done is I've talked about where we are today. I will cover off a little bit about what's up next, because what kind of product manager would I be if I didn't give you at least a little teaser of things that are around the corner. In the near term, what we're focusing on is that we're trying to bring in more data. So you saw throughout the system that we're doing a holistic approach, which covers a lot of areas of tailings management. And what that means is that in each of those areas, there's more and more stuff that has to be plugged in. And a big part of the value of a holistic solution is what does it have access to? In addition to bringing more data, we're also looking to make it easier for people on the ground. We've all experienced systems where you get told, hey, you got to use this thing and make sure it works. And that's what the corporate said. The goal here is to give people tools that they enjoy using, because when they enjoy using it, they'll want to put that data in. And as a result, there will be more data and they'll get more value from that data going forward. In the medium term, what we're going to be focusing on is then how do we use those larger data sets? I showed you calculated tags, which are the starting point for that journey. But next up is providing engineers with more detailed charting tools and analytical tools, such that if they want to plot some crazy value versus the other crazy values, because they think there might be some relationship there, we give them the tools inside the system. You never want to restrain a good engineer's curiosity, because you never know what they might find and how it might improve your operation. Beyond analytical integrations, we know that there's a fair number of people out there that have fairly complex setups regarding user permissions or multiple sites. We'll be putting some of the tooling in place there to support that. Finally, for all of us, the gold standard is predictive forecasting. So not a single person is happy with the world of tell me there's a problem today. They want to hear, tell me when there's going to be a problem 2 weeks from now, and tell me how confident you are that there's going to be an issue. As the data set increases, the role of predictive and forecasting gets ever greater. We've all been in roles, I think we've been drowning in alarms or drowning in alerts and just like there's so much stuff going on. That's great. What do I do with it? Systems have a very strong role to play in sifting through it and bringing up advice and insights for people to be able to say, hey, there's 3 things I need to worry about. And did we lose the mic? I'll keep talking anyways. So there's 3 different ways for things to pop up. An engineer can say, look, yep, I appreciate the heads up. Those are all covered. You know what? That actually is quite novel. I'm going to spend a half hour today looking into it. So hopefully that gives you a sense of what's to come. There is really almost no end to this, but the direction that we're headed is both achievable and very relevant for what we're doing on the ground. And we think it's a really great place for this tool to go. I'd like to invite Joel to come back and we'll join ourselves for Q&A session and you can grill us on all the stuff you saw.
All right, so I hope everybody can hear us and that it was had a informative session. For our Q&A session, I mentioned earlier in the presentation that we're going to be using the Q&A function inside of Teams. At the top of your screen, you should see there's a a Q&A button. So you can click, that'll open up a panel. You can enter your questions there. Not on camera, we have Laura, who's our moderator, and she's going to be reading those questions and we will respond to them ourselves. Daniel's online as well. I'm going to give Ian a gentle nudge this way.
Sorry.
There we go. All right.
Okay, so we have a few questions right now from the audience. The first one being, before implementing the software, are there any specific prerequisites that need to be met? So does it require certain data inputs, hardware compatibility, or training for users?
That's a good question. My experience so far has been that tailings are pretty consistent across the world. Mines are different, but tailings approaches are definitely very similar. The things that we will typically ask for in preparation are, do you have a responsible person who's going to be designated to look after things? And how much coverage do you have? So if you don't know your own systems yet, it'll be a little bit more difficult, but there's not many things you need to do up front to get ready for a software installation of this type. As an integrated management system, we've already designed for understanding that there's a lot of stuff out there that we might be discovering along the way, but to get started, those hurdles are very low. It's probably the one person I'd probably involve early on would be an IT person to say, hey, do we have MQTT devices? How's our IoT system doing? If we're looking to bring in something that looks at sensors, do we first understand what sensors we have and where we're looking to pull from? If I was in your chair today, look up on some of that, and if you get some really confident answers, there's very few barriers to you proceeding.
Just to highlight there, right? We meet you where you are, basically, right? We want to make sure that if you have simple systems, we adjust to that. If you have complex systems, we'll adjust to that, right?
Okay, great. The next question we have is, does Hatch own this software?
So Hatch does own the software, but I want to underline Hatch is not in the business of holding the data. So the data does reside within the system. But the important piece of that is that we have an external API and you have the options of extracting your data at any point. So the data remains yours. You can take it, you can interface with it with your internal systems. The software itself resides in a Hatch cloud. We can look at some other options around the cloud hosting piece, but the software is ours, the data remains yours.
Perfect. So our next question is, can your system be used for GIMP?
So I'm not familiar with GIMP as a technical standard. Daniel, are you familiar with that one?
No, I have to say it.
That's okay.
Like
I'm
Lucas?
going to assume it's a technical standard. Oh, hang on. Because GIMP is also a graphics management tool, but I don't think that's it. So let's assume it's technical standard. So part of the path that we're on, and I just had a demo earlier on today with another client who asked about, hey, like I've got additional technical standards. So GSTM is great, but I've got internal technical standard, or I follow CDA more closely, or I follow ANCOLD or something. So the goal here is that the work we're doing in GSTM is also setting the foundation for other technical standards down the line. So more custom things or changing things around. We also probably all expect eventually GSTM is going to change. So a lot of the functionality we're building in now allow us for both iterations inside GSTM, as well as eventual extension to more local technical standards or things that are purely internal. As long as it has, categories and criteria, need for evidence, and need for commentary and status declarations, it's sort of all the same style of thing. But if it's something that you're interested in, I encourage you to reach out to us. I'd love to have that conversation.
We did have a clarification that GIMP is Geotechnical Instrumentation and Monitoring Program. On to our next question, though. We have one that asks, do you need an edge device?
Yes. So the way that the information is acquired currently is through this edge device installed within your network, and that's what picks up all the various databases and sensors. It isn't an unrestrained thing. It is configured, and you have control over what it looks for, what it connects to. But that is the method that we use for acquiring all of that valuable sensor information.
Worth noting that is a read-only process.
Yes.
Perfect. Moving on, we have what features or modules does the software offer specifically for water management within tailings? Does it provide tools for monitoring water levels, quality, or flow rates?
Yep, it does. So part of the challenge with water is that a lot of it tends to be manual. And I mentioned earlier how we specifically cater for manual data to come in. You might have like turbidity sensors or things that are fully automated, but a lot of it is flow rates and things that might be taken by hand. So to the extent that those exist on site, which is often the first challenge, that's time series data. So the more you have instrumented, depending upon your configuration, we bring it in, and you could easily see a dashboard with just your water management components. Likewise, there's no need to restrain to that. You can go into noise monitoring, or you have automated dust sensors. There's a lot of these environmental and tailings adjacent sensor areas that we're ready to cater for based upon sensor connections and that dashboarding functionality we showed earlier. Likewise, you can filter your main map and show just those sensors that you have related to a subsystem like water management. That's another way to bring it in. And of course, finally, we have that large scale water management network diagram that pulls that together once you have it connected.
Just to add to that, it's large scale is site-wide water balance, right? That's what we mean. Basically, not just focus on the tailings, but focus on the entire facility, like the mine facility you have, right? We will use water resources from tailings to feed the plant. So we need to understand those systems, how they work, and our operational tools is what it's designed for, to get all that operational management for water.
Okay, so we've got another question, and it's, can equipment sections be integrated to SAP and Maxi?
So the answer is yes. So SAP, we mentioned earlier, there's lots of systems out there that are dedicated systems. We have APIs and connection methods to cater for those. Obviously, some of them will require some consulting or additional work to make sure they're tailored for your installation, but connections to those existing enterprise systems are definitely in scope and available.
Any more? All right. So that takes us to the end of our question period. And I would like us to close with a few thoughts. We had an excellent discussion today, and we thank everybody for joining us and providing that really good feedback. We hope you found this time valuable, and we're excited to speak more with you on your specific circumstances. I want to thank everybody online that attended, but I also want to thank my backup house staff that have helped bring this together. You can't see them on the screen, but there are a number of other people here that have brought this presentation to you. By partnering together and having these discussions and pursuing innovation, we demonstrate our commitment to positive change. We improve safety and our environmental outcomes of our operations while we build strong relationships with our supporting communities. When we adopt digital tools into our tailings operations and management systems, we reinforce awareness of our operational impacts and effectiveness, and we implement tools that allow us to respond to these conditions in meaningful ways. We create more sustainable business and better outcomes. There's a QR code on the screen that'll take you to our general landing page, where you can reach out to us for additional questions or to have a conversation about your site-specific needs. I hope you'll join us in our journey as we develop technology that ensures the legacy of today's decisions creates a foundation for a safer, more positive, and prosperous tomorrow. Take the next step to reach out and scan that QR code. Thank you.
Thanks, folks. Have a safe day.
Thank you so much.